Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, publisher of Aspire Magazine, the premier inspirational digital magazine for women since 2006. If you're interested in topics that encourage you to live from the inside out, elevate your mindset, embrace life for all its glory, then come grab your free subscription at subscribe2aspire.com. We'll be waiting for you. My friends, is your soul begging you to slow down? I know I've got that message quite a few times in my life. In today's fast-paced world, it can often leave us exhausted and overwhelmed. And I don't know about you, but I am yearning and craving deeper connections and intentional communities, which you know I am all about building. And that's why I'm so excited today to talk to life coach Elizabeth Barbour, who will be teaching us how to design meaningful rituals, sacred celebrations to navigate life's big transitions of joy, loss, and change. Elizabeth is the author of the award-winning Sacred Celebrations, Designing Rituals to Navigate Life's Milestone Transitions. A coach, speaker, and shamanic practitioner since 2000, she has been the guiding light for thousands of women to practice smart self-care when life gets chaotic and overwhelming, as we all know it can. Through her transformative program, Solid Ground, Navigating Transitions When It's All Just Too Much, she empowers women to embrace both grief and gratitude. She's a firm believer in the power of community and guides her clients to build meaningful connections so they never have to carry their burdens alone. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Linda. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Well, I love your message. I have your book in my hands, and I'm thrilled that you're going to be sharing your wisdom in Aspire magazine. And a lot of even the language in that introduction just speaks to me as a woman. I think a lot of us, and I have a large community, so I have a lot of conversations with women. I think so many of us are stuck on autopilot, the hamster wheel, that we're just going to the next thing, going to the next thing, and never taking the moment all the time to be present in our own life. So that's why your message really spoke to me about creating rituals and celebrations for these milestones. What I'd love to know, Elizabeth, is what led you to this particular work in writing this book? Because I found that most of my guests, there's something in their own life that led them to the work they're doing now. Is that true for you?
It is. Yes, that's a great question, Linda, and a great place to start. So when my mom was dying, my adoptive mom, so I am adopted and I have an adoptive mom and a biological mom. So when Joan, my adoptive mom, was dying back in 2016, I, for lack of a better word, served as her death doula with the support of my healer and my shamanic practitioner. And I helped her to release herself of her earthly body and make her transition. And it was a very loving, peaceful, just connecting experience for the two of us, really, to walk that journey together. And when she actually died, I was planning on, we were living in Houston, Texas at the time, and she had moved there so I could care for her. And we were planning on burying her in Florida, where my dad had been buried, 20 years prior. And my girlfriend said, but Elizabeth, you have to do something here. And I said, well, my mom didn't really have many friends here. And my friend said, no, but people want to show up for you.
Mhm.
So I created what I called, and it's actually the opening story in my book, if you read it. It was called the White Rose Release Ceremony. And I invited about 30 to 35 women from all aspects of my life, neighbors, friends, clients, people I went to church with, people I danced Zumba with. And they came to my home and we had this really beautiful ceremony, talking not only about my mom, but talking about mothers and women and family and our relationships and the importance of that. And I can tell you more about the ritual, but so what was so powerful about that ritual is afterwards, so many people said, Elizabeth, that was like the most amazing thing we've ever experienced. Like that was just so powerful. And that was when I realized that I needed to be teaching people about the importance of rituals and how to do it, how to create it in our lives.
Well, the book is powerful. Like, I love how it's broken down into the different aspects of our lives that we might want a ritual or celebration. So it's so beautifully written. In your bio, I mentioned that you're also a shamanic practitioner, right?
Yes.
Ritual is a big part of all of that. Is that where you started playing with ritual and celebrations? Is through that inner work yourself?
Actually, it's not. What's really interesting is there was foreshadowing many, many years ago. So I first became a coach back in the year 2000 when, I was one of the early adopters in the profession. And I would tell people, I'm going to be a coach. And they'd say, well, what sport?
Yeah.
I'd say, no, I'm not athletic. And I remember one of my very, very first clients was a woman who had been trying to have a family, had been trying to get pregnant and was unable to do so. And she and her husband had finally decided that they were going to stop the treatments and they were going to choose to be at peace with a child-free life. And I'll never forget this coaching session. I said, well, what if you were to design a ritual? And she said, oh, that's a great idea. And so together we co-created and co-designed this ritual that then she and her husband did with their friends and family. That was back 2000. This book just came out in 2019. So, so that was sort of, I think, my first entree to ritual. And then soon after that, I was going through a divorce for my first husband, which I also write about in this book. We might talk a little bit about it later. And I had a friend who had been divorced twice, and she said, well, are you going to do a ritual to honor your divorce? And I said, well, I hadn't thought about it. What should I do? And then I ended up having a series of 3 different rituals that I did for that divorce. So it's been with me for a long time, but it's just really come together in the last, I'd say 5 to 6 years. So
Yeah, even the book, like the cover, the woman sitting in circle. Um, I'm all about intentional community. I have quite a few
yeah.
circles, and I just know there's power in it. So let's talk about a change because a lot of your work is about, milestone transitions.
Mhm.
So we all know change is a part of life. All of us have experienced that. And why do you think it's important for us to have coaches and help us to guide us through these changes?
Well, as you said, Linda, it's about being in community. It's about witnessing one another. And I think that we are not designed to be solitary walking through this life. We are designed to be in community and connection, whether it's friendships, whether it's family, whether it's collaborating with work partners. And I think that coaches and healers and helpers can serve a special role when we're navigating change that's a little different than what we might get from our friends or, say, a sister or a mom, because coaches and healers and professionals are going to offer a different perspective. They might have some tools that we don't have ourselves, that would help us get unstuck. They can hold up a mirror and help us to see ourselves differently, than we can see ourselves. And then even our friends can, your friend can maybe say something to you and you'll go, ouch, that hurts. But your coach or your therapist says it to you and you're like, oh yeah, I hear that. So we receive it differently, you know?
That's a big one, I think. I think of the coaches that I've worked with and healers, it's almost like they're neutral, where
Yes.
friends and family have their emotions tied to us in their own stories about us and what we can do and what we shouldn't do. I love having a coach in my life, as well as healers. So I think that's an important aspect too. And the biggest thing is too is letting go of this as a woman, this thing of I can do it myself. I've got this. I don't want to be weak and appear that I need someone. Has nothing to do with needing. It's opening. It's like opening to receive the support from others. And do you find a lot of women struggle with opening to receive support?
Absolutely. I think they are much more inclined to be willing to offer support. Oh, you need help? Sure, I can do that. Oh, you need me to bring cookies for the bake sale at school? Sure, I can do that. And they're always jumping up to help others, but when it comes to receiving, there definitely seems to be a bit of a block. And one of the things I write about in my first book, which is a Kindle book called Smart Self Care, I talk about how when you don't receive help from people, you're denying someone else the ability to feel good. Because, think about it, right? When you offer to help somebody, let's say you have a friend who's sick and you're like, oh, can I bring you some chicken soup? And they're like, oh, yeah, that would be really great because that would help me feed the kids tonight. Sure. So you make the soup and you're in the kitchen and you're feeling really good. Like, oh, I'm making this with love and I'm going to go bring it to my friend. Well, if the friend said, oh, no, I don't need your help, I'm fine. Well, then I missed out on that experience of being able to show up and serve you with love. And so I try and remind people that receiving is just as important as giving.
That's a beautiful message. Elizabeth, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to dive deeper into this conversation.
Okay, great.
We'll be back in a moment, my friends. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. You can learn more about Elizabeth Barbour at elizabethbarbour.com. And Barbour is spelled Barbour, elizabethbarbour.com. We'll be back in a moment.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Inspiration for a Woman's Soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Consistently attract soulmate clients, begin showing up on brand, monetizing on your calling. Welcome all spiritual coaches, leaders, healers, light workers, and practitioners to a show that turns you on in your business and amplifies your magnetism. I'm host, catalyst, and spiritual business coach Rosalind Fung, and I'm here to journey with you into the juicy and help you discover where the real gaps are. Ignite your mindset and soul with strategies and systems as each episode takes you to the sweet spot that activates your soulgasmic business by tuning in on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Mountain. Join me for your light language activation and let's magnetize and monetize.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversation. Today we're talking about sacred celebrations and designing rituals to navigate life's milestone transitions. With me is Elizabeth Barbour, author of Sacred Celebrations. She's also a coach, speaker, and shamanic practitioner for 24 years. So we just talked about, the importance of also being able to receive, because I look at it that way too. It's a beautiful energy exchange. What do you think some of the biggest challenges women are facing today in their lives, but also in this whole realm of creating space for themselves in their own lives?
Yes. Gosh, so many things in the way. I mean, the number one thing I see with my clients is the caregiving burden. I think that at least in our Western society here in the United States, because we no longer live in multi-generational households, some people don't even live in neighborhoods anymore. They might live more independently. Women have the real lion's share of raising children, caring for elderly parents, supporting their spouse or their partner, helping out with their friends, helping out with the community, volunteering at school, volunteering at church. And oh, yeah, by the way, they're also working full time too. And so I think that the caregiving burden is just so huge. So many of my clients over the last few years, and particularly during the pandemic, we really saw that I think women suffered more. And particularly, I can just speak from experience, particularly those of us who had kids at home during the pandemic, because suddenly you've got a kid home doing virtual learning, and you've got a partner at home doing virtual work, and you're like, I'm ready to get out of my hair. But the reality is that so many of those tasks do fall to women, and it's exhausting.
It is, and Aspire's been around for 18 years, and I've done 13 summits, so I've held a lot of conversations. This show's going to be 9 years old, and that's a thread that I've seen throughout all those conversations is, and I'll paraphrase it this way: women are at the end of their own life. Like
Yeah.
they're at the end of the to-do list. Oh, well, I
Yes.
can do this until I do all this for everyone else. And then they're exhausted, resentful, overwhelmed, which then turns to health issues, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they don't know how to get out of their own way of saying, I give myself permission um, to be the number one in my life. Because if we can treat ourselves from a full cup, everyone in our life is going to benefit. But for some reason, many of us have this mentality, and I'm speaking as a recovering overgiver, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have nothing left and wonder why relationships stagnate and all this. It's because we're giving from this place of exhaustion. Do you see that too?
I do. And I think you really hit with the right word, which is around permission, Linda. I think that women really struggle with giving ourselves permission. Is it okay for me to do this? Is it okay for me to say no? Is it okay for me to ask for help? Is it okay for me to do something different than what's expected from me? And I think, in fact, I've led retreats over the years, and I've led retreats on and off in my years in business. And one of my favorite exercises to do with people is to have them write a permission slip for themselves. I give myself permission to ... And it always involves, letting go and not doing that, and resting and saying no. We need to do that more.
We do, and as I shared, I'm a recovering overgiver and
Mm-hmm.
run on caffeine, just trying to get everything done in the day. And it was probably the last decade. And for reference, I'm going to be 62. So, I don't want women to wait till their 50s to give themselves permission to love themselves, to nurture themselves, to go after their dreams.
Right.
So I hold these kind of conversations because it's like, ladies, don't waste 52 years as I did, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being at the end. So I'm loving this conversation. And, I've you've written that we need more rituals, right? And
Yes.
I believe we do. To me, life is, some people are funny about the word rituals, and I was one of them 30 years ago. And then I said, wait a minute, I have a ritual every morning: get up, brush my teeth, take a shower, do all that. That's a ritual. So talk about what you mean about we need more rituals.
Mm-hmm. I think about rituals as sacred containers. And it could be something as simple as what you just said, having my morning cup of coffee or a cup of tea. And it could be something as big and grand as a wedding celebration, that goes on for hours or days with lots of people. But to me, what makes rituals distinct from habits is that there's a sacred element to them. We put more intention and meaning into that experience. And I think that we need more rituals. It goes to exactly what we were just talking about around permission. Rituals give us permission to feel more deeply in our lives. When I just stand in my kitchen and I'm drinking my cup of tea in the morning before I'm getting my kid off to school, I'm just drinking my tea mindlessly. If I take my cup of tea and I sit on my back deck and I listen to the birds and I look at the deer that are walking through my backyard, and I hold my warm cup of coffee, my warm cup of tea, as the fall, leaves are starting to change and everything. That's a completely different experience. It's a little bit of a moment of touching into the divine and feeling my body and my spirit and going, this is going to be a really great day today. And so there's the magic, I think, that comes in with that. The other thing is, I think that we need more rituals. Going back to what we were talking about earlier, Linda, it's about connection, it's about community, about having a shared experience with people that we love and feeling less alone in the world. I have an example or two I'd like to share if I may.
Yes, please.
I'm thinking about one of my dearest girlfriends, one of my very closest people, and she found out that she had to have an emergency hysterectomy several years back because she was diagnosed with an aggressive cancer. And she asked our group of friends, she said, would you please do a ritual for me? And so, because we were all sort of scattered about, we did it on Zoom and we did like a prayer and blessing ritual for her. And we envisioned her, being healed from her sickness and, prayed for her doctors, to have sure hands and for her children to be loving and understanding because they were so young and, so prayed that, family would take care of her. And it was just this beautiful, we were maybe, I don't know, 45 minutes on the Zoom together, but it was just this circling up of love to give to our friend as she headed into surgery. And, now I can say gratefully, she's 3 years, cancer free and she's doing great. But, she talked about how important that was for her, to know that we were all lifting her up during that time.
It is powerful. And I believe in the power of prayer and collective intention, the energy that was rippling from all of you to her.
Yes.
I know it's helped me through 2 life-threatening surgeries, and
Mhm.
there's a power to it, and people don't understand that when you come together in a sacred container, and it's funny because that's the language I use in all my group programs. I create sacred containers.
Ah, okay.
Oh yeah, all my group programs, in every book project, I'm like, here's the sacred container, ladies, step on in.
Mm,
So you and I have a lot of like similarities in
yeah.
how we love to hold circle for women. But something else you said about drinking the tea and the difference between just drinking it in the kitchen and going out to your deck, right? The word
Mm-hmm.
that dropping in while you were sharing that story was intentionality. That's the
Yes.
difference for me with my rituals is what you described on the back porch was done with intention. And to me, intention is like part of the energy of life. It's like, am I
Yeah.
fully present in this moment? And so I just wanted to share that because that word kept dropping in as you were sharing that story. You were being present with intention in that moment, sipping the tea, tapping into nature. And that's what really ritual is about, right? Being fully present and bringing that energy of love, love and intention out to whatever it is that you have in the ritual about, whether it's a wedding, your friend's health. Does that word resonate with you for rituals?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that the element of presence that really speaks to me too is the sensory experience of it. Just if we continue to riff on the cup of coffee or tea on your back deck, right? It's like the feel of the cool I live in the mountains. So the feel of the cool mountain air, on my skin as we're starting to get into fall, the taste of the tea, the listening to the birds, like when we can engage our 5 senses, that helps us with the presence. That helps us to be really more embodied as we're more connected with the divine too. It's both, right?
Yes. And I love that about the connection with the divine because as I stopped doing and learned how to be, because I've been an entrepreneur for 32 years. So my first business, I met her back in the 90s. I had just got off welfare, started my first business with $2,400 and grew it within 5 years to win Entrepreneur of the Year for the state of Mass for the
Wow,
SBA.
that's
Yeah, that was,
awesome.
yeah, I've had a hell of a life. But the part I want to share is back then, I was in the energy of masculine energy, do, striving, chasing,
Yeah.
thinking that my worth, my value was out there. Well, I'll prove my worth. I'll win another business award. And I was motivational speaking. Colleges, I was a high school dropout, and colleges are having me come teach about marketing at Bentley University, Simmons College of Graduate Work. But guess
Mm-hmm.
what? I was out of balance. And so what you described on the back deck to me is being fully present in the moment, being fully present in my own life. And when I look back at those years that I was in the other energy, I think a lot of us, when I talked about the hamster wheel and that cycle that women are in, it's because we've forgotten how to be.
Yes. Yes.
And
I think I think the out of balance is the key. And we do, and certainly I think it's different times in our lives too, right? Where we have to get into the masculine of
oh,
doing, whether
we have
it's
to have,
getting,
yeah, and I want to make that clear. We have to
yeah.
have both. I want to
Yes.
this
Yes.
this brand for 18 years. If I didn't have the foundation of strategy and structure, but my
Yes.
creative flow and aligning with the divine helps things flow easier, but I couldn't have one without the other. I've lived in the masculine back then, which was out of balance. Then I went so far into the feminine, like, I will just manifest. But I didn't want to do the action. And so I was out of balance that way. When I came into center 15 years ago, my business exploded. I had a beautiful
Mm,
merging of the two.
yes.
And I think that's a big message for women. We have to spend as much time being as we are doing. And I just saw the time. So we're going to take a quick break, but let's dive deeper into this topic, Elizabeth.
Great.
We'll be back in a moment, my friends. Please be sure to grab a copy of Sacred Celebrations. You can learn more about Elizabeth's work at elizabethbarbour.com, and that's Barbour. We'll be right back.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Are you ready to magnetize your soulmate partner? It is possible. It begins by learning to become your own soulmate and falling in love with your life. Karen McPhail is a soulmate manifestation coach, infinite possibilities trainer, and certified quantum manifestation coach. Karen is also the creator of the popular Soulmate Solution program, a best-selling co-author, and empowering media guest. Karen not only teaches the law of attraction and soulmate manifesting principles, she used them to call in her own soulmate after many years as a single mother and school teacher. Her personal journey to attracting love using the soulmate solution strategies is what fuels her passion for supporting other women to do the same. If you're ready to magnetize your soulmate partner, take the first step now and visit infinitelifepossibilities.com.
If I could be you,
and you could be me for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm Linda Joy. Thanks for being here. I always love circling up with each of you. And I'm thrilled to be joined by Elizabeth Barbour. So, Elizabeth, right before the break, we were both getting so excited because in a lot of the women I speak to, especially the ones that have been following me for decades, in the virtual world, they're like, Lynn, you're so much more peaceful now. You have more time off than you've ever had. And how are you running 5 brands and always seem zen, peaceful, and I'm always traveling with your honey and take summers off? And I go, because I take time to be. I'm no longer pushing, chasing, striving. So talk about that. The women who may feel like they can never get off the hamster wheel or autopilot. What's your message for them? Because you know what it feels like to be finally off the hamster wheel.
I do. Yeah, and I think it's, it's funny that when you asked me that question, Linda, the very first thing I did was saw myself in the woods on the hiking trail. That was the very first answer that came in for me. And part of that is inspired. Last year, I was in a really horrible car accident. I was in a head-on collision and had a really bad concussion. And so I was out of work for about 4 months. And it was being in nature that was such a big part of what healed me. Because nature, like we were just talking about, you were talking about the importance of being back in balance. Nature is balanced. So the more we spend time in nature, the more our body gets into rhythm with how we are naturally designed. And so, I think one of the things that we miss, one of my favorite books, are you familiar with Wayne Muller's book called Sabbath?
No, I don't think I've read that one. And I'm an
Okay,
avid
so
reader.
it's called Sabbath, and I might get his subtitle incorrect, but it's like finding joy and delight in our busy lives. And I absolutely love this book. It's one of my all-time favorites, but he talks about how in nature, you just don't skip over winter. You don't have the fall, or you don't have spring, summer, fall, and then skip winter and then keep going back into the busier, more productive seasons. You have to have winter. You have to have time. The trees and the seeds and the flowers and the plants and even the animals need time to germinate in the darkness of the soil, or in, the mama bears in their dens with their cubs. We need that time to slow down and regenerate before we can then come back into the busier times. And so I think that beingness is what happens when we give ourselves permission to rest. But to your point, we're living in a society where we're always, go, 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 do. So there's not as much emphasis on being, because who has the time for that?
No, it's so funny because as you were speaking, I'm like, oh, she's right. Because when I was back in that other business, we live in the middle. I think you've seen photos. We live in the middle of the woods on a spring-fed pond. And we've had multiple homes on this pond. And when I first met my honey, we've been together 30 years. We were coming down the dirt road. We didn't own this house. We've built 2 houses since then, but we had this little house on the opposite end. And we were driving down the road, and we were probably seeing each other 6 months. And I had my retail business. And I'm looking down as we're coming down the road, and he goes, hey. I said, what? He goes, don't you even see this? Because he's a nature lover. He connects deeply. So I'm like what he's talking about is driving down this beautiful dirt road. The view opens and the sun was setting, and like it was beautiful. I was so in my damn head, right? So I was looking at him like he had 10 heads. And I looked at him like, what? He goes, this, are you even here right now? And that was my first message of like, so I looked up and said, oh yeah, pretty, we're right back to my phone, right? And I realized, my goodness, I am so disconnected, and I'm going back almost 30 years, so disconnected from the cycles of life, from everything around me, because I was in my head energy. It's been my journey of reconnecting with nature that has completely healed and transformed my life. I'm glad that you brought that up because it is healing. If I'm having one of those off days, I'll just go sit by the base of a tree or sit on my dock. There is a sacred reminder in nature that we all need to hear. It's been like a healing balm for me, and I raised our grandchildren the same way, to have that love. I don't want them waking up at 35 years old going, oh, there's a whole world out there.
Right.
So do you have rituals that you do that tie into nature?
I do. Certainly for me, one of my greatest personal rituals is just hiking. It's one of the reasons why I moved back. I live in Asheville, North Carolina, and I had lived here 20 years ago and then moved away for work reasons. And then when I came back, it's just such a healing balm to get out into the woods. So every weekend, I always make sure I get out at least once and twice if I can. And then I would also say, just trying to make sure when I'm spending time with people that I love, whether it's, maybe a friend that I met through networking and we want to get together, instead of just sitting in a restaurant and having a meal, let's go for a walk. Let's go be outside. If I'm going to spend time with my daughter, it's like, hey, let's grab your volleyball and let's go up to the volleyball courts and pop the volleyball. And not that I'm very good, but she's good. She's on her volleyball team at school. And, let's go pop the volleyball around. Let's be outside. So just trying to incorporate that into my daily life. And then also trying to bring nature into the home, with plants and with flowers and with crystals. I don't know, any of my friends who know me know I'm kind of a rock lover. So I have crystals in like every room of my house.
So I'm the same way, and my granddaughter has she's going to be 13. She has a larger crystal collection than I do. So it looks like I've created a crystal monster. The only difference is she actually remembers the name of every single one. I don't. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, she has an extraordinary memory.
That's great.
We have another segment coming up. We're going to take a quick break now so we don't have to interrupt the last segment, because I want to talk about a way that our listeners can start designing their own rituals right now.
Okay, great.
So we'll be back in a moment, my friends. Stay tuned, because we're going to be talking about how you can design your own rituals starting now. We'll be back in a moment.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Times Radio. FM.
Inner peace, joy, and fulfillment are yours, even if they feel out of reach. When you learn to befriend your shadow emotions instead of avoiding or stuffing them, you free yourself of self-sabotaging patterns, beliefs, and habits that keep you from living your most authentic life. As a life transitions coach, professional certified coach, certified RIM facilitator, IPEC Energy Leadership Master Practitioner, and Human Design Consultant, Mary Jo Rathgeb intuitively and compassionately supports women to shine a light on their shadow emotions so they can reclaim the energy and wisdom contained within. This sacred work frees women to be who they really are and not someone they think they are supposed to be, and empowers them to live a life that aligns with their deepest truth. Learn more at maryjorathgeb.com.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No. I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Free your mind with Times Radio. FM.
Welcome back. Thanks for listening. You're listening to Inspired Conversations, and with me is Elizabeth Barbour, author of Sacred Celebrations. So, in our final segment, Elizabeth, what are some ways the listeners can start designing their own rituals?
Well, I think the first thing to do, Linda, is to really take a look at your life and see where might I benefit from having a ritual? Like, where do I need help and support, whether it's being more present with myself and my own maybe healthy living routines? Or is it, gosh, I really wish that my family was connecting more because, we're running in 5 different directions and we don't take enough time together. So I would think that's the first part is just sort of assessing like, well, where's the need? And then the second thing is to just really think about, so what can I do that's easy and accessible? So for example, let's say that you're working on your health journey, right? Like you and I were talking about that beforehand, relationships with food and exercise and healthy living and feeling good in our bodies. Maybe you start a gratitude journal that's focused on healthy living, and you have a ritual where every morning or every night you write down 3 things that you're grateful for around your body and the choices that you made that day. If you want some accountability with that ritual, then find a buddy and say, hey, every day let's text each other 3 things that we love about where we are on our health journey right. So that would be one thing you could do with that. If it was something more related to, let's say, connecting with family, and I'm just giving examples here, there's lots of things you can do.
Yeah.
But I write about in the Sacred Celebrations book a coaching client that I had years ago, and she had a teenage son who was just being teenagery, and being, a little self-referenced and a little entitled and a little grumpy. And so we talked about having their family institute a gratitude jar. And so what she did was she put out a jar on the kitchen table with little slips of paper and pens and just invited everybody in the family. Hey, when someone does something nice for you or you've had a really good experience during the day, write it on your little slip of paper and stick it in the jar. And then every Sunday night, we'll have family dinner and we'll pull out the contents in the jar. And so her family started instituting that. And she said within just a matter of weeks, she saw a noticeable shift, not only with the teenage son, but with all the members of the family, because everyone got really excited. Like, oh, well, what's in the jar today? Did someone say something nice about me? And, oh, I want to make sure that I say something nice and thank a family member. So it can really shift the energy and help to build connection and community. So those are 2 examples.
I love that. For me, it was that really helped me change my life is because I used to be in that other energy. I had already programmed myself to open your eyes, hit the ground running, right? For decades. I was like, I gotta shift this. And I didn't know how, but really it was, I guess that's what I did was create a new ritual. So what I did many years ago is I put an elastic on my phone because tendency was open your eyes, grab the phone. Like you're not even fully conscious in the moment. It was just such a second nature. And under the elastic, I put nourish mind, body, and spirit first.
Ooh.
It was a beautiful piece of paper that I made. Like, you know how you go to Michael's and you buy beautiful background paper for scrapbooking?
Uh-huh.
I made it with intention and love. And then I would slip it in there, the elastic, and then that every single night before I went to bed, because I wanted to break that damn habit of grabbing the phone and bringing other energy into my life before I was even fully energetically in my body. So now that I'm thinking of it, that was a ritual, right? I created a new habit, and
Yes.
after a while, I no longer needed the elastic. But sometimes I've fallen back into the old ritual, and I go get that piece of paper and that elastic and put it back on because the world is always telling us, go, 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 go. And I don't want to live in that energy. So
Yes.
I call it, I teach my clients, it's like, listen, we're always recalibrating. You will slide back into old behaviors, thoughts, beliefs, patterns, That's okay. Don't judge yourself. Recalibrate, or in this case, create a new ritual. So I'll be recommending your book because there's some juicy rituals in there. But something as simple as that, that was creating a ritual.
I love that so much. And that's such a great example for the times that we live in because we are so addicted to our technology, our phones, our laptops, our whatever. And so I think that uh, finding a way to stop that automatic habit and say, wait a minute, what nourishes my body, my spirit, and my mind first? That's great. Love it.
Yeah, and that has been really healing for me. Another thing for me, I think too, is we have. It's not like 30 years ago. Now we have more information coming at us from every single angle. Our phones, our watches, every piece of technology that can lead to energetic overwhelm,
Hmm.
emotional overwhelm. So I have little rituals. I do not have notification. Email has never been on my phone. I can't even access my email from there. I do not have notifications, Facebook notifications on my phone. I don't want to get energetically pinged all day long. So those were little rituals that I created to keep I call it sacred container, my energetic container, clean and pure so I can navigate this life in my own energy, not the residual energy of everything around me. Do you have
Yes.
energy cleansing rituals that you use aside from being in nature, which I think is the number one ritual?
Yes. Actually, I do. I actually have a visualization exercise that I do every morning when I'm in the shower. As I'm, just washing my hair and getting my body clean. I sort of breathe in white light from the top of my head or my crown chakra, and I invite it to, infuse my all of my cells and being with this white bright light. And then what I do is I actually visualize mirrors, like little tiny mirrors, sort of spiraling up and surrounding me, but facing out. So that if there's any negative energy that's thrown my way during the day, intentionally or not, 'cause sometimes this happens, that then it'll sort of bounce off of me or deflect from me. And yeah, that's kind of my little energy sequence I do every morning in the shower. So,
I love that. I love morning. I love shower meditations.
uh-huh.
I do
Yeah.
the white light sometimes, but sometimes I switch it up and I have the light of the color of every chakra
Hmm.
come in through the body, clear the body, go clear me out so I can start the day energetically cleaned. But I think having all these rituals, and I want to talk about your book and give it another push because I really want to invite everyone to grab a copy of Sacred Celebrations, Designing Rituals to Navigate Life's Milestone Transitions. And I'm just going to read a couple things that you're going to find in there. Let me get to my table of contents because I have some pages marked, but like you have part two is life's milestone transitions, and you have like women's transitions, divorce, moving, weddings, growing up, um, everyday gratitude rituals. Like there's something for everyone here. And what's fun is you could bring the family into it, as you said, which I think is so beautiful. I do that with my daughter's 40 now, and my granddaughter's 13, but everything is with ritual for my daughter. Like every single first day of school since she started preschool, Nikki has a mini heart-shaped cake pan, right? Probably this little, about the size of your hand. Every year she bakes the night before school a vanilla cake, frosted with white frosting, puts little mini M&Ms around the edge with the number in the middle of the cake for that year. I have every year since preschool. So now she's 13 and just started 7th grade. I'm going to be 13. And she looks forward to that. Nikki makes every birthday, every milestone, even as McKenna became a young lady, right? There was a ritual around that to celebrate that moment. And that's
Yeah.
what I want for everyone, right? So now McKenna will grow up having that connection to ritual of making these little milestones so sacred. But when you're a grandmother and Nikki sends you the photo going, here's the grade 7 added to all the photos.
Oh,
You can see what with her little toothless grins, a photo from each year. I'm like, oh my God,
yeah.
this is getting me. But that's a ritual. That's what we're talking about, right? Something so simple. And I don't even know if Nikki knew consciously that she was creating that. That's just who she is. She might not have even used the word ritual at the time, but that's what it's become. And it means so much to McKenna, you know?
I absolutely love that. And that's such a great example, Linda, that it really doesn't have to be complicated.
No,
It
that
it
simplicity is
Yep.
everything. And it means the world to McKenna.
Yes.
And Nikki loves doing it, but for so many things, that's what Nikki does, is create different little rituals. Every birthday, she wakes up for 13, gonna be 13 birthdays, and the room is filled with balloons. Bedroom, she just wakes up and there's dozens of balloons and a little gift thing. It's that moment of like celebrating a sacred milestone. So
Yes.
I want to invite everyone again. Please visit Elizabeth at elizabethbarbour.com. That's Elizabeth, BARBOUR.com. But ladies, you will find everything below the recording that you're listening to, whatever platform you're on. There is all her contact information. So please grab a copy of Sacred Celebrations, learn more about the work Elizabeth's doing in the world, watch for her article, and possibly even more articles coming to Aspire Mag blog, because she has a lot of wisdom to share, my friends. And Elizabeth, I'm so grateful that we met, and I have loved this conversation, and I love your mission to empower women to create more rituals and celebrations.
Well, thank you, Linda. And thanks for all that you do for women everywhere. When I was introduced to your world a while ago, I realized all these people were like, oh my God, Linda's amazing. And they were all right. So
Well,
thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
you're welcome. And, you know, there's no accents. We're all yearning for community. And I think right now we're all magnetically attracting exactly who we need in our lives at this time, because I have such a sacred, beautiful global community. And then within that, a bunch of mini sacred communities, as we call them, sacred containers. So I'm so glad that you're now in the container, my friend.
Me too. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Until next time, my friends, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness. Blessings.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.